Hello everyone, I am Julian Morris of the Channel 5 News. In the headlines, government assistance for the underinsured as Dominica builds back post-Hurricane Maria. Senior public officers formulate a working response to building a climate-resilient nation, and a lack of insurance causing problems for the people of Petite Soufriere as they try to build back post-Hurricane Maria. We'll have these stories and more coming up after this break. First stop in the news, Prime Minister Soufriere has appealed to Dominicans to take their work more seriously with a fresh approach to their responsibilities, bearing in mind present and future generations. Prime Minister Soufriere delivered the opening remarks at a conference attended by members of Cabinet, permanent secretaries and senior public officers. They were engaged in formulating a working response to the Prime Minister's vision to make Dominica the first climate-resilient country in the world.
What I would like for us as Dominicans and as public servants is for us to dutifully report to work, first and foremost. Not just to come to perform the tasks that each of us has performed over the years, but to report to duty in the name of the Commonwealth of Dominica. In the name of the Commonwealth of Dominica. And for the sake of current and future generations. You can join, is it a raffle they call it, or you can get a visa by going online and lottery, you know, or you can get a green card and so forth. And even if you were to leave, you will have family back here. So you will always be connected to this country. Because we have to appreciate that our country was brought to the edge of existence on September 18, 2019. And many of you here, and I see the media here, I'm not sure whether you're recording this to create publicly, and many of us in the country thought that this was the end of the world. Our immediate reaction was to give up. You've just built your home. Some of you were building your home and your roof gone, your plaster yet. You have a mortgage, and the bank may give you a little reprieve for 2 or 3 months, but you have to continue to pay. They're not reducing the interest rate. They will not be reducing the principal amount. All it's saying, well, look, you'll pay me a little more, a little later. Those who are invested have seen this washed away. You just put in investments in your small business, and this has been washed away. So at first, we survived on shock. Days after, we survived on relief. But next, we must survive on the outstanding performance of every person in this room. That's the only way the country is going to survive. If each of us are exemplary in the execution of our duties, there is no room for us to fall short in these circumstances. There's absolutely no room. Because nothing else is good enough outside of exemplary performance.
According to Ambassador Farrell, who chaired Thursday's session, Dominica demands maximum service in 2017 and will demand even more dedicated service in 2018. He believes all efforts need to be consolidated to maintain an efficient and flexible public service as a matter of urgency in order to face the challenges of rebuilding. The Prime Minister impressed on his audience that the task at hand was to rebuild an entire nation in an era where Dominica must matter to the world if it is to attract assistance.
These days, you only matter to the world if you're flinging nuclear missiles across the oceans, if you're a safe harbor or haven for terrorists, or if you're on the front line of the fight against climate change. And it is the latter that makes Dominica relevant. There's some who criticize me for leaving Dominica and going to address the United Nations. But these people are short-sighted. It is our message to the world in a respectful but consistent and firm manner that has allowed the world to reach out to us.
In other top stories, a commitment by the Prime Minister that senior citizens and those who are underinsured will get the state's assistance in rebuilding post-Hurricane Maria. The cost of the hurricane damage, according to the World Bank, is $1.3 billion, with the housing sector being the hardest hit. Prime Minister Skerrit acknowledged it would be a huge task to help the populace, but he noted that without government's intervention, their situation won't improve quickly.
One, there'll be people who will need a home from the government because they will never be able to build the homes. Because what these hurricanes, what these storms expose is the vulnerabilities of many families. People don't go build in a ravine because they want to build in a ravine or they love to live in the ravine. People go ravine because it's wasteland. Nobody is taking the land. They have a family, they want to build a shelter over the family's head. And they build a little house. They got a little sheet of plywood, they all galvanized, they knock it together. You know, they're not wetting, they're fine. Until a storm happens, until a disaster like this happens. And we need to provide for these people. So yeah, one, this category. A second category of people who, the senior citizens in particular, who have no insurance whatsoever, whose homes got affected. Because of the age, they will not be able to get a loan from the banks to fix it. They have no children on earth who can help them. They're suffering from one ailment or the other, and the government will have to come to assist them in covering their homes.
Skerrit has committed to covering the full cost of material and labor for families with no source of income. Government intends on making funds available at the Housing Loans Board and Aid Bank for the working class.
Then you have those who may have insurance, who are working people, but their insurance is not covering the full extent of their reconstruction. They may have a difficulty in contracting the 7% loans at the bank or 7.25% loans at the bank. So what we're going to be doing for a lot of these people is to put monies at the Aid Bank and the Government Housing Loan Board at a 2% interest rate, give you a decent grace period, and not take into consideration the tightness of your take-home pay, but facilitate you in the process.
And the lack of insurance is among major setbacks for the people of Petite Soufriere as they try to build back post-Hurricane Maria.
During a recent visit to that community, which had been declared a special disaster area after Tropical Storm Erica in 2015, Chairman of the Village Council, Franz Newton, disclosed that the majority of houses there was not insured, and this in turn would slow down the rebuilding process for those in compromised living conditions. And though Newton describes the people of Petite Soufriere as resilient, he maintains that they do need help in building back.
Well, it's one thing I can tell you, our people here, they are very strong. And our people, they're determined to move on. You know, in anywhere you live, you will always find negative and positive. But I can tell you there is more positive here than negative. Because if you look around, even the trees, the place already look very green. Now, you will see a lot of shacks already put up. People decide, hey, we want to be independent, we don't want to stay in shelter, and immediately the day after, people start to knock up their little houses and so. And I feel proud about them, the people and them. You know, what I would really like to see is roofing for our houses. Yeah, you see galvanized, because this tent and these tarpaulins, they are just for maybe a month, 2 months. Because you put it on, the wind, and especially when we have gusty wind, it will toss it and tear it. Now you that living under that is like it's another Maria every day. But you know, if we can get galvanized to really help us through, and especially, I have to say, maybe 98% of our houses are not insured, and people build off their pockets, and to see how it is, that is where the challenge we really face. We really face a challenge there, but I know where there's life, there's hope.
Another factor influencing the rebuilding process in Petite Soufriere is the halt in the bay oil industry. Petite Soufriere is among a number of communities in the east which have prospered from bay oil production. Councillor with the village council, Velma Warrington, says a large number of houses in Petite Soufriere was built on bay oil money.
Most persons are waiting on the government for assistance because it's an area where we rely on bay oil production a lot. And then right about now, most of the bay oil trees have been broken and the leaves have gone. So it's like going to take a while, maybe years, for us to actually have that production going on in our community. And as well, the factories where the bay oil production is being done, the factories are flat. So most of them, so it might take a couple of years to get back on track with the bay oil production. And that is mainly the only source here for income, really, because we don't do gardening and stuff on a large scale. People do little backyard gardening, but nothing much to give them enough income that they can use to do the rebuilding.
As was customary around the country, the well-being of the elderly was a main concern in the wake of Hurricane Maria. Vanya Dura is employed under the Yes We Care program and says that greater care has had to be administered to the elderly post-Maria.
It really rotated. On November month I work with 3, and this month I only work with 1. But he's much elderly, you know. So I work with only 1 for now. But in November, during the November month, I work with 3.
And how are they doing?
Well, they're not doing too bad for now. They were kind of, scared. And seeing that after the hurricane, it left some of them sick. Because also the one I taking care of now, it's like somebody like his memories leaving, kind of going. But he wasn't like that. It's through the hurricane. So we have to always give him more care than what we were giving him.
To your knowledge, how many people passed away in Petite Soufriere because of the storm?
Well, we did not have anybody passed away during the storm. But after the storm, I think we have about 8 of the elderly already died. And I'm asking God to give me more strength, that I can have strength to take care of my elderly people I'm taking care of.
Not only the safety of the elderly was a main concern, but during the storm, emergency shelters did not live up to expectations, and this caused some level of anxiety in the community.
My first impression when I got up, when I see daylight that I could see everywhere was Mam Soufriere finish. That was my first impression, because I could stay from one end to see the other end. So it was like, that's it for Soufriere. And I was concerned that some people may have been dead too, because some persons were in shelters and then the roof's gone and then the blocks fell. So we have a typical example of the shelter at the primary school. There were 22 people in that shelter, and then the roof collapsed and the blocks were falling. So they had to run under the storm, run across by a neighbor to secure themselves and their families, because the roof had already gone and then the blocks were falling and the stuff in the school were all about.
From all accounts and from visual evidence in the community, the destruction was widespread and far-reaching. When asked whether or not the community should be evacuated, especially as it was declared a special disaster area, Chairman Newton says that there is no consensus in the community about a potential move.
Yes, no. And yes, no, I have to say, you see, I'm going to give you my opinion. No, for me. Because where you already, that's where you grow up. That's where you know. When sea come, you go in the sea, you catch your fish, you plant your dashing, you know you have your way of life already living. Your burden. For you to relocate, you have to tell me, okay, what are the other means of my resources that you would have to give me so that I can live my life. You know, and that would be the main. Now, if I have my land and my house where I private, will I be able to get that? So all these things we'll have to take into consideration before we relocate. I heard the voices of a few saying yes, they would like to. But majority, that's where we know. You know, and it's very hard to come out from where you know. And beside that, nowhere is safe.
And while the entire country is rebuilding post-Maria, Petite Soufriere will have to wait a little longer to be restored to its former glory days when the bay oil industry was king. Reporting for Channel 5 News, I am Andrea Louis.
And finally, the announcement by the Roseau South MP recently that he would bow out of active politics could mean that the ruling DLP could have a clear path to regaining that seat. Following the results of the last general election in which Joshua Francis beat the incumbent DLP candidate Ambrose George, Prime Minister Soufriere vowed that the DLP's intention was to take back that seat. When asked recently about the prospect of the DLP getting its wish, the Prime Minister said his present focus was on more critical matters and not on the next general election.
To be honest with you, the next election hasn't occupied any of my time, of my critical thoughts. I am preoccupied now with assisting the private sector where necessary to reopen their businesses, to restock, getting farmers to be back on the field and providing them with the necessary support, covering the homes of many of our senior citizens who do not have insurance and who do not have the means of covering their homes, getting these 1,000 homes completed quickly so that we can put 1,000 families into the homes as soon as possible, signing additional contracts for homes, assisting the public servants with some limited funds to recover the homes, and we'll be making an announcement hopefully by tomorrow of the initial amounts which we will place at the Aid Bank and the Government Housing Loan Board at 2%, with a 6 months grace period, the public servants and the private sector employees to recover the homes, with a maximum they can borrow $50,000. These are things that preoccupy my mind, you know, and the many of us who still have tarpaulins of our homes. So elections are not on my mind, but just to say that the people have been disappointed with the representation given to by the Workers' Party, and not only Rosa South, but the entire country.
Prime Minister Soufriere has said publicly it would have been in the country's best interest if the resignation letter had instead come from the leader of the opposition instead of the MP for Roseau South constituency. Joshua Francis has characterized his time in politics as very turbulent, but plans on completing his term as MP for Roseau South. To end the news, the headlines again: government assistance for the underinsured as Dominica builds back post-Hurricane Maria. Senior public officers formulate a working response to building the first climate-resilient nation, and lack of insurance causing problems for the people of Petite Soufriere as they try to build back post-Hurricane Maria. Feel free to contact us at news@marpin2k4.com. On behalf of the entire production team, I am Julian Morris. Thank you for watching. Join us next time.